Kathy, good morning,
July,
Christian.
it's a very interesting and colorful morning as we're seeing the proclamations come through. Amongst the local races, which most excites you?
Well, of course, we have seen the end of three dynasties, no? Or at least we're seeing the end of dynasties in the metro. So, as I mentioned last night, this is part of the cycle of dynasticism in this country, no? In which political dynasties have been a perennial aspect of our political history. And throughout history, we have seen a cycle of the rise, emergence, domination, perpetuation, and then eventually a decline, erosion of power of a political dynasty, and then eventually an end to a political dynasty.
How long is that cycle?
Usually, just like a business cycle, right? You have the first generation who usually builds a business and eventually makes it grow, and then a second or third or even fourth generation will eventually result in a decline of the business. No? So, in the same way, for those who made or who are making politics as their primary source of business, the same cycle applies. So, in the case of the Philippines, because of our weakened political institutions and elite capture, and this is the entry point of the circulation of dynasties. No? And what we're seeing is the end, perhaps, of dynasties in Metro Manila, but because of the weak political institutions that we have, these dynasties are simply replaced by emerging or ascendant dynasties.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Eventually, in the long run, it is not good for our political system, because what we really need to work on is, of course, if we want to democratize, we must open up the avenue for political power to other sectors of society, not just a particular set of families.
But let's try to talk about specific dynasties that ended here. Let's talk about the Estrada dynasty.
Precisely.
What exactly made the difference? Because some other dynasties were able to sustain the momentum in this particular election, but others did not survive, specifically the Estradas.
The Estradas, one of the longest running dynasties in the metro in Manila, founded in 1969 when Joseph Estrada first ran for mayor of San Juan. Throughout the entire Marcos era, dominated San Juan, and then graduated into national politics, first by the Senate and then vice presidency and so on and so forth. Became president, ousted, but made a comeback. No? So because of their base in local politics, they were able to project themselves into the national, plus the fact that he was also a movie icon. So Estrada actually began the so-called populist narrative in this country. So first, his long experience as a local chief executive and his background in show business helped him develop this populist narrative of era para sa mahirap. And he parlayed into this, and eventually his sons eventually inherited this and went on with their own. But the problem is, after a while, he expanded his base.
He went to Manila.
He went to Manila.
From San Juan.
From San Juan. And that is where his problems started, because now he has to take care of two kingdoms, right?
So if he stayed in San Juan, would his reign have been extended for much longer?
Yes. If the family concentrated there. And of course, it's also a problem, again, when you perpetuate your familial interests at the expense of other allies or other familiar interests, it will cause problem for your political future as a dynasty. No? So in this case, the Zamoras have been long allied with the Estradas until eventually the Zamoras realized that the Estradas will not give them the opportunity to have their share of the power.
But do you think this is also a case of the Estradas somehow spreading themselves too thinly.
Yes.
And number two, it's a matter of timing because somehow they were a bit distracted in these elections because you had the daughter of Jinggoy Estrada running for running for mayor.
Yes.
Jinggoy and JV were also running the respective races. And of course, former President Joseph Estrada was running.
Yes, it was a gamble, pardon the pun, on the part of ERAP, and they went all in, and they're losing big.
Now, what happens here, because you talked about this cycle, throughout Philippine history, some dynasties were able to come back.
Of course.
What do you think will happen to the Estradas? Because they still have their loyal following, even if the dynasty has crumbled in this election.
If we're going to follow the trend at the national, ironically, the last Estrada standing is the good one. So, well, we still have to wait and see whether Jinggoy will eventually land in the winning circle. But with their big loss in Manila and really a big loss, I mean, it's already tragic for their political interests that they lose Manila, but to lose their very bailiwick, no? And that is their jump-off point for their national projection of power. So, and JV is the only one left with a good chance of entering the Magic 12.
But even JV's having some problems because he's now at number 13.
Yes.
Do you think he was affected by that negative perception of the Estrada dynasty? Because personally, he had been saying that he was in favor of an anti-political dynasty law.
Yes.
But the others are using a different argument. There's no such thing as a dynasty. Do you think that particular perception against the rest of the family affected him?
Yes, I think he was on the right track in saying that it's a big mistake for the two of them to run at the same time in the same election. In the past, Loy Estrada was already senator when Jinggoy ran. So, and the same goes for other dynasties. Alan Peter was already in the Senate when Pia decided to run. So,
and Jinggoy was already a senator when JV became a senator in 2013.